Hello and welcome to another episode of Two Guys and a Chainsaw. I'm Todd.
And I'm Craig.
We have been doing older movies lately, bouncing back and forth. We just got off a request from the 1980s. That had me diving back into the 80s again because we did a whole month of 1981 horror films, and that was one of my favorite series of films we did, just because I find that era, early 80s, late 70s, so fascinating for horror because it feels like horror movies were getting, I don't want to say more mainstream because they've always been kind of mainstream, right? But they've always dipped in and out of what I would consider like maybe my parents would go see it, or maybe people would be talking about it at the water cooler at work. Horror movies have always been popular, but they always haven't been like in your face. And it feels like in the early 80s, just that period of time, there was such a boom that everybody was jumping on board with. And independent cinema was still really active. And even, we talked about the Friday the 13th movies, how Paramount was making these movies under the table, because even though they were a big studio, they were doing these non-union pictures and secretly financing them and funding them and putting them in big theaters. But still, these were independent productions, studio productions masquerading as independent productions. And anyway, long story short, I love that era. And I was going back and flipping through what other 1981 movies could we do? And I kind of fumbled into the foreign film area a little bit and realized that we haven't done an Asian horror movie in a while.
A long time.
Yeah, we've done like an Indonesian horror, might be the last time we dove in there. Maybe we did one or two J-horror Korean ones, but this is an arena that you and I have just not done due justice to, I think. Me, I like going to the older films as well. I don't know, I think for me it's about the history. I like to see where horror was and where it is now. I like to think about what were we fascinated by in the United States back in the early 80s as compared to what was being exported. How much of this was being seen in other countries, and what were other countries doing at that time in horror? Were they even doing it, And I stumbled across this movie that's pretty notorious. It's called Suddenly in the Dark, otherwise known as Suddenly at Midnight. It's a well-regarded film. It's gotten a DVD release recently, and it's from 1981. And the director who directed it was a very prolific South Korean director, directed hundreds of South Korean films, named Yong Nam-ko. I'm going to butcher these Korean names, by the way.
I didn't bother because I knew I couldn't say them.
Yeah, I'm going to do my best, but Yong Nam-ko did a ton of movies. And Korean cinema, just to kind of just be brief about it, has really undergone a period recently of explosive growth. Korean horror movies are big now. I think Squid Games was one people, recently woke up to, but Train to Busan was a worldwide hit. There are a ton of J-horror and K-horror, I guess you could say, movies that have been wildly successful around the world. The Host back in the early 2000s was big.
Oh, I was just going to say, did we ever do The Host? Because if we haven't, we should. That's a great movie.
We need to. It's a fantastic movie. J-horror was getting its day in the West, I would say, for a little while in the late 90s, early 2000s, I guess, with The Ring and Dark Water and The Grudge.
What was the one that we did where it was like in this village and like the kind of bumbling cop had to investigate?
Yes.
I think people's kids were getting murdered or something. I remember that it was long, but I also remember that it was really good and kind of heart-wrenching. Like, he was kind of this bumbling dude, but by the end, you really felt bad for him.
Yeah, it was really ethereal, and it just kind of has a different way of presenting the story, right? The Wailing is what it was called, 2016.
Yes.
Almost universally acclaimed. I think it's got I'm looking at it right now. It's got a 99% rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Is that Korean?
It is.
I couldn't remember.
Yeah, very Korean.
Okay, well, I'm glad that I have that point of reference because I'm going to need something to draw comparisons to this movie.
Sure.
And I think
The Wailing's a good place.
That movie did a lot of what this movie was doing in terms of suspense and storytelling and pacing, but I think it did it way better.
Well,
like 400 bazillion grajillion times better.
It's definitely a newer film.
But I can see similarities.
Yeah. Well, Korean cinema, and I'm no expert in this by any means, but I read up on it a little bit. And Korean cinema in the 70s through the 80s was really undergoing a tough time because politically Korea was going through a tough time, right?
Right.
back to the early 1900s, Korea was occupied by Japan. It was an absolutely horrible time in their history.
The early 1900s.
Yeah, 1906, 19...
It's just funny to hear it
said that way.
Referred to as, yeah.
Because it's like...
we were born in the night. I was born mid-late 1900s. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Right. This Korean cinema was a thing. Like, starting in 1902, I think, they were starting to make movies there. But as soon as the Japanese invaded, they took control of everything in culture, including cinema, and were very restrictive on what could be made and how it could be portrayed, how they were portrayed, And then you get this little period of time around the 60s or so where things open up just a little bit, but really right on the heels of that, you've got this dictatorial regime. Again, very restrictive on society and culture, and artists trying to express themselves really had to jump through hoops and had to toe the company line, had to get their scripts approved. By the time this movie was made in 1981, I think just that year or the year before, the government had expanded the number of companies that were allowed to produce films from 12 or 16 to 20. So I'm sure this was one of the films to take advantage of that. And this movie is actually, in a way, kind of a remake. There's an earlier movie called The Housemaid that was made in 1960, widely acclaimed. Something else that also has 100% ratings on Rotten Tomatoes. It's in the Criterion Collection. It's regularly listed on Movies You Should See Before You Die. And it follows a very similar plot to this about a housemaid who comes in between a couple and things start to get complicated. This movie, which came out 21 years later and has more of a horror bent than a sort of psychological thriller bent that movie had.
Disagree.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I was mad. Like I was kind of mad up until. I mean, I was kind of mad the whole time, but up until the last 7 minutes, I was like, "This is not a horror movie. This is a psychological thriller. It's an erotic psychological thriller."
Yeah.
It gets goofy at the end, I guess, but honestly, still, depending on how we want to interpret it, you could still say that even in the end, it's a psychological thriller. But
no, I agree with you, and I think that's a strength of the movie, honestly, is that it's a little ambiguous, and it's deliberate. It's clearly deliberately being ambiguous. Is something supernatural happening here? Is this all happening in the mind of this woman? I've never seen The Housemaid, the 1961, so I can't tell you how that compares to this one. I kind of wish I had had the time to do that. This movie was controversial in that a lot of people said that it was a clear ripoff or plagiarism of that earlier movie. And for that reason, I think it didn't get the viewership and critical acclaim or critical attention that many people say it deserved and is now getting. So you're looking at a period of time where cinema is starting to open up. They're starting to relax the censorship laws a little bit. You can see that in here, and that there's a bit of eroticism that's being allowed to be shown that probably wouldn't have been allowed before that. Nudity. So I think it's an interesting movie to see, and this is, it's like going back and looking at the old Hammer films. It's a different time period. The Hammer films predate this, but this is in a different country. Filmmaking styles were different. People, I think, were a little more patient, were willing to wait through a slower burn. I also think, personally, that filmmakers were a little more careful at times back then. They were trying for something a little more artistic. They had symbolism deliberately, and not to say the filmmakers don't do that now. But, you compare like The Shining with a more modern horror movie that's going for something similar, you're going to get faster cuts, you're going to get more quick-paced stuff, you're going to get, they're really trying to maintain and keep like in-your-face tension, I think, up on the screen a little more than perhaps audiences back then needed, I would argue. That's the lens I tried to watch this movie through. I really knew this movie was going to be an older film that was going to be a slower burn, and so I sat down with it when I had time and the patience and wasn't tired, and really just let it wash over me and really tried to watch it like I was a critic interpreting an art film. I think the film is kind of arty. And so anyway, I'm just going to say I really enjoyed this movie a lot. I loved the time period. I loved seeing the style. I thought it was beautifully photographed. I thought the color was really interesting. I thought that he was doing really interesting things here cinematographically. And I thought the acting was superb. And so, I've never seen it before now, and I'm really glad I did. I have a feeling, though, judging from some comments you've made, that you're going to have a different take on that.
Oh, no. thought it was boring. And all of the things that you said, like you thought that it was shot really well. Okay, I mean it looks like a soap opera. Like it's clearly shot on these large, far overly dressed stages.
Yeah.
For the interiors, and then for the exteriors, they've got a nice house location that looks cool, and you know, the exterior.
Yeah.
The exteriors, there's like a beautiful garden on this estate that they live on, and that's very nice. The interiors look silly, I thought. Part of it is just because it's so dated. Like, the movie came out in 1981. It looks like they went to thrift shops and bought things from, like, the mid-70s. I don't know. Like,
well, you're looking at it from American.
It's like velveteen, I suppose, and that may be a cultural thing that I don't understand. I mean, all of the things that I saw on these sets were things that I would have seen in an American, even Midwestern household, more likely in movies, but especially around this time period and through the 80s, like, there was a big Asian-inspired design trend in America. We especially saw it in a lot of movies with, like, rich people. Like, they would have, you know, Asian screens and all kinds. My point is, there's a big living room set. And there are like 4 couches in it and a coffee table and 17 lamps and 14 tables, and
they're all wicker.
Bric-a-brac on every table and shelf. Like, it looks like they can barely move in this space because there's so much stuff.
Well, there's actually a lot of space in the room, though. I mean, I guess you're just thinking that the tables look cluttered or something?
I suppose. It just looks visually, it looks very cluttered to me. And I understand that much of it was intentional, especially that Cobra statue that he had to shoot every third scene through. It's like, I get it. I get it. there's a snake thing in the room, and it's symbolic, I guess, and hopefully it will come up later. I don't know. In that way, it also felt to me very much like a soap opera, and it felt most of the time like it was shot like a soap opera. Like, we're looking very much through a fourth wall.
Sure.
Onto a stage. In fact, I think that I would have enjoyed this story better on stage. I think had it been more intimate, I would have liked it better. I don't know. I'm rambling. You also said, well, it's stylistic. You know, there's interesting stylistic things going on. Yeah, every once in a while he shoots through a kaleidoscope or he shoots through a Coke bottle. Like, great. Like, that's cool. Good job. I don't know.
There's so much more than that. There's so much more than that.
Well, tell me about it. I mean, and that's the other thing. Like, it's not scary. Let me set up the story. Okay, so there's this guy. And there's only like 5 people in the whole movie, and I couldn't pronounce their names, so I didn't even bother. The husband is a scientist who studies butterflies. He is on an expedition when we meet him, and then he comes home, and he has a beautiful wife. She's just stunning. Like, she's gorgeous. But apparently a little bit insecure. It took me a while. I thought that I recognized her. She looked familiar
she sure
to
did.
me. And I looked her up, and she wasn't in anything that I had seen, but she looked so familiar, so pretty. About 2/3 of the way through the movie, I was like, well, she kind of looks a little bit like Meg Tilly. Like,
oh yeah,
a little bit. I don't know, whatever.
A little bit.
But anyway, she's the wife, and they have a little girl who is really inconsequential to the whole movie. But I just want to point out that little girl is a brat, and I would have slapped her in the face several times throughout that movie. He teaches at the university. He studies butterflies. He comes home. He invites his buddies over to show them a slideshow of all the cool butterflies that he saw, and they're all like, ooh, butterflies.
By the way, I love that. They're all these like middle-aged guys dressed in suits, smoking and like laughing, and he's showing them slides of butterflies, which they are talking about intently. It's so
I can
cute.
only imagine. I hope that you have read something into this. Like, I hope that butterflies are significant in some way, because
I think so. I think
anyway.
You want me to interrupt you? I mean, think about it. When a person is curating the butterflies, what is it about? You know, it's like bird watching. It's like beauty. It's like, here are all these men who are tending to these little fragile creatures and studying them intently and collecting them in their glass box. You know, it's I think
leering at them. Okay.
Leering at them, showing them you know, I think it's a male-female dynamic and sexual relationship.
I like that. That's good. All right. So they're all looking at these butterflies, and then out of nowhere, a mysterious slide of this doll. I don't know how to describe it. I don't know what the correct term is in Korean, but it reminded me of kabuki, like white face, a woman in white face, black hair pulled back in like a white robe, carrying what looks like an enormous cleaver.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Red lip, very stern. This image of this doll, and they're like, where did that come from? And he's like, I don't know, must have been a mistake at the developers or something. I don't know, whatever, who cares, doesn't matter, fine. He f***s his wife. Yeah. There's a lot of there's some dirty stuff in this movie. This scene is one of the tamest ones, but it's, you know, kind of an erotic sex scene. But then he has to go away again, like right away, and her friend is like, your husband goes away a lot. This drove me crazy because this friend early in the movie says, your husband goes away a lot. He's probably cheating on you. You better be careful. Men are always looking out for somebody younger and hotter.
Yeah.
So then the husband brings back a younger, hotter girl, which is obviously very important. But after that, this woman, the wife, goes back to her friend several times and says, I think he may be cheating. And every time the friend is like, no, you're just crazy. Like, yeah. Bitch, you are the one that put that in her mind.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And now when she thinks it's happening, you're like, no, dum-dum.
Well, her reasoning is not unsound, but it is dumb. She's thinking, look, your husband's had all these opportunities to cheat outside of your house, like he's away all the time. Why would he be doing it right here?
Yeah, well, and that's an excellent question. Why would he do that? Because what he does is he goes away for a few more days, and when he comes home, he says, hey, I found this girl in the street. I brought her home. She's going to be our maid now. Yeah. Okay. And like, I thought that the wife would immediately, because she's just had this conversation with her friend, so I thought that she would immediately be like, oh, no, but no, she's like, hooray, we need a maid. It's so hard to find a maid. Like, she seems really excited about it for a second.
At first, there is a very, like, suspicious, she's looking at the girl, there are all these shots of her eyes and all this stuff. It's only when the husband's like, but we need a maid, that she suddenly, like you said, it's like a light switch flips, and she's totally fawning. Oh my God, thank you so much. Let me bring you in and show you everything. You're so right, honey. Thank you. You're so lovely. I felt like that was sort of a release, like, why is this guy bringing this woman home? What's going on? Oh, he has
I found her in the street.
He has a perfectly logical explanation.
The people said she had no family.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's a whole stupid backstory. Go ahead, tell it.
He found her wandering alone without parents, and it turns out later that she is the daughter of a famous shaman. And they have no idea about the father, what happened to him, but fire broke out at their house. The mom died, and Miyoka is the girl's name, survived.
Uh-huh.
Later, I think we get kind of I guess you could call it a flashback of what happened.
Something about the spirit of the grandmother of the sea god.
This is shamanistic stuff we just don't understand. But this is a totem,
right?
You know, this is a totem, and the mother, has imbued this doll with a lot of meaning to this girl, and has told this girl that as long as she has this doll with her, she's going to be safe. The doll will protect her,
right?
And so that is the one thing, this one possession. This girl comes here with the clothes on her back and this bundle wrapped up.
And it's the doll from the slide. And
it is.
Yeah, she's super protective of it. Again, that bratty daughter is like trying to like wrench it from her. Like somebody needs to hit that girl. I'm sorry. I do not endorse domestic violence of any kind. I'm exaggerating. Put her in a corner. Put her in a timeout. Right. She's rotten.
It's weird how suddenly welcoming the wife is. That's a little, I think a more modern take on this movie would keep things a little more tense here. Maybe give some moments for them to have a little bit of a bonding. And I think that maybe there's some cultural things we don't quite understand here. What she does do is she gives this woman a bath. She takes her into the shower. She shows her the bath. And I assume it seems like Korean. I mean, I lived in Japan for a few years, so I know a little bit about Japanese culture. The way the Japanese baths work is like everybody takes a bath at night, but that's the thing you do after you wash up. So you fill up a bathtub full of hot water, then you wash up outside of the bath with just kind of a spray thing and get all soaped up and get super, super clean. And then you sit and you soak in the tub. And even if you're visiting people like for dinner, they will fill up the tub, and because you're the guest, they'll let you be the first to go in it. But everyone's going to take a turn in that bath, in that same bath water.
So gross.
Yeah, I guess the idea
I understand,
if you're all washed up before you go in, it's still clean. But yeah, it feels weird.
But it wasn't. Like, it was...
In this one, it's the reverse.
That's what I was saying. Right, because it looked like... They went into the bathroom, which reminded me of the bathroom from The Substance for some reason. Like, it was all tiled in white.
Oh, yeah.
And the bathtub was full of filthy water.
It looked very brown. Yeah, it was kind of gross.
This 19-year-old, she says she's 19-year-old new maid, gets in there, while her new employer, the wife, is in there with her, and like she just acts like it's the most luxurious thing she's ever experienced to sit in this filthy water.
Well,
and
to be fair, I don't think the water was meant to look filthy. I have a feeling that either one of two things. One, they wanted it to maybe show up on camera a little better, and maybe the way the lighting was with this. But number two, I think they were also using it to kind of, they put some coloring in the water to sort of obscure her body a little bit, so it wasn't quite so nude. That's what I think.
That's fine. I mean, there is fairly graphic nudity. I mean, we see her naked when she undresses for the bath.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. Like, she's laying there. They don't want it perfectly clear so that she's just fully nude there or whatever. But
it's like the Asian version of putting soap suds in there. Yeah,
well, that's what I'm saying. Like, put some soap in there. Like, it was brown.
Yeah, but that wouldn't work, man. They don't put soap in the bath. They don't do that.
I'm getting hung up on stupid things. It doesn't matter. But yeah, then the wife like hoses her off, and the husband kind of walks in and sees a little bit, and
accidentally.
Nobody really freaks out about it, right? Whatever, the point is, she has this doll, and when, the daughter's like, I want it, and the mom's like, well, let her see it. Ugh, I don't know, whatever. So she opens up this doll, and it's the doll from the slides, which immediately flips her out, and she's like, my mom gave it to me, she made it for me, she said to keep it with me all the time, it will protect me. Okay, fine. From that point on, this is a movie about a woman who is up in the head. She just becomes convinced that her husband is screwing the maid.
Yeah.
Is the husband screwing the maid? Maybe. I don't know. It's possible, but she is just absolutely convinced of it, and she keeps having... It's difficult to tell. Like you said, it's ambiguous. Is she fantasizing that she's seeing little glances between them? Is she really seeing things happening, or is it all in her head? Is she dreaming? Is she hallucinating? One way or another, it seems like she's losing it, and the mystery, I suppose, is this supernatural? Because it certainly is an odd coincidence that a slide of that very totem appeared in her husband's thing before this girl arrived. Or is it?
Exactly, right? Did the husband have a relationship with this girl before? Or, is there something he's not talking about? Oops, sorry. That must have been a mistake of the developers.
Yeah, and now it's gone. Where did it go? Oh, I got rid of it. Why? Like...
I don't think the main thrust of the movie here is this supernatural. I think that's a layer of it. But I think the real thrust of the movie is she crazy or not? Or is she being gaslighted? Because I was really up in the air about it. Even still, I think I'm kind of up in the air about it. I mean, we can talk bit by bit about each of these elements later, but after finally the woman does this horrible thing. All right, God, how do we talk about this?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like we've set it up. Like at this point, the maid is there. The wife is suspicious.
Yes.
The maid. I mean, you could say that she's acting kind of suspiciously. You could say that.
Well,
but you just don't know, because it could just be the woman's perception.
Yes.
Like, the filmmaker does go out of the way to film the maid in such a way that it looks like she's giving knowing glances, or, like...
Yeah. You're not sure if she's smiling or...
Yeah, she seems shady, but it could just as easily be totally innocent.
It could be naivete. At first, you think, okay, well, this is like this girl that kind of believes in supernatural things. Like, she's got this doll with her. She's only 19 years old. She's lost her mom, who was a shaman. That's got to be... I mean, you think about Carrie, she might be a little messed up in the head. She might be a little simple. In fact, at one point, the husband and the wife kind of mention that she seems a little simple within the context of later the husband saying, well, she's a little smarter than she comes across because she's really good at collecting these butterflies. I've got her going out collecting specimens and she's really smart about it.
Well, and the wife is also obsessed with how hot she is. And like,
yes.
I don't know, like, you look great. Even her friend says that to her. Like, when the friend is over and the friend sees the maid and she's like, oh, is that her? And the wife's like, yeah, she's so beautiful. And the friend's like, whatever, she's all right. Nothing, like, no better looking than you. And the wife's like, oh, I don't know. Like, and it's true. Yes, this young woman does look younger than the other women, but they're both beautiful. It's not like...
They are. But I think some of this is contextualized in both the history and the culture. And what I do know about Asian culture, obviously Korean's a little different from Japanese, is a little different from Chinese, but there's sort of this real, I think, unhealthy focus on youth. Here in China, you're considered an old maid if you're over 30. Women are obsessed with getting married by the time they're 30.
Oh, boy.
If they are 31 or 32, their parents are panicking, they're panicking. They don't think guys aren't going to be as interested in them. They keep their age a secret. They lie about their age. It's insane. And to a certain extent, this exists over in Japan as well and in Korea. So this is actually reflecting a very real... Maybe you think, from a Western perspective, she's being overly paranoid. But the very first conversation that we're listening to between her and her friend literally says, as soon as you're over 30, you're as good as 60, right?
Yeah.
She's laying this out. And so I think it's very natural that this woman, as beautiful as she is going to be extremely paranoid about her husband, who's a university professor, bringing this young girl home suddenly in the house. And cheating's cheating's common everywhere. I don't want to dog on any particular culture, but
I know. And like, I feel like I've seen, you've seen this setup in a bazillion American movies.
Sure. In a way, you kind of before we started recording, even though it goes in a very different direction, The Hand That Rocks the Cradle is kind of like this movie too, right?
Kinda, yeah. You
bring someone into the house and
you're right,
to do a job, and then all of a sudden, there's suspicious things, or you're suspicious of what might be going on.
Well, and that was something that I was curious about too, and I don't expect you to be an expert on any culture, but you do have more worldly experience than I do. This was weird to me. And again, this was 50 years ago, almost. But it was odd to me that they brought a young woman into their house. And one of the weird things that the mom hears right away is she hears the maid talking to that statue saying, oh, yeah, I really love it here. It's really great. And I'm going to be here until we die or something like that.
Yeah, right.
But the husband at some point is like, oh, I really like Miyoki and we should keep her here until she marries. Is this... I know in colonial America, young women, when they were of age, if they were not married, would often go to work in other people's households until they were married, and then they would... Is this... Because it was very strange. It was a very odd dynamic. Like, they weren't cruel to her.
No.
But they were also not kind to her. Well, they ordered her around as though she were a servant.
I think they treated her like the help.
She is.
She is. They weren't. This did not shock me at all. It is very common here for people to have IEs, like literally, and you don't have to be rich, It's just like somebody from the countryside, someone from the village who needs a job and is coming to the city to get work. And what can they do? Well, they know how to cook and clean and take care of kids. You'll have them over at your house, and generally, part of the deal is you're giving them a place to stay. Like, they're literally living with you like a member of the family. And that's today. That happens here today in China. We could have gotten an IE to help us raise Kenji, and we hired an IE off and on, to help with certain things or like as a babysitter, things like that. It's very common. This part of it didn't surprise me at all that this might happen. Maybe back in the 80s, to pull a complete stranger in, who's like an orphan or whatever, it might even be seen as a nice opportunity. Like, we don't have to pay her as much, or we don't have to pay her at all. Or at least just like feeding her and clothing her and giving her a place to stay. Like, that's good enough. So yeah, you're not going to like start buddying up with her. You're still going to be like, get me my coffee and make me the food. And,
I don't want to criticize any other culture that I don't fully understand, but for better or worse, that's exclusive to the very wealthy in America.
Oh, for sure.
I think. And I don't know how I feel about that, but if it's a good arrangement for people, great, more power to you. But I said that they weren't overtly kind to her, but not overtly cruel. But I feel like the wife eventually starts being very antagonistic towards her. Like, looking at it through a modern lens, like, this woman would have grounds for a lawsuit.
To be honest with you, I agree with you how open she is after a while about some of this stuff. But honestly, I don't know, man. I was in her head the whole time, and I was going back and forth. I really wasn't sure if she had grounds to be paranoid or not, because the girl was just shady enough that I did wonder if, even if nothing's going on with the husband, does this girl have some other motives? Is she pretending? Because there are just moments, and this is why I thought the acting was so great. I thought the wife's acting was very convincing. I didn't think it was melodramatic. I thought, this is another one of those movies that has these long, lingering shots on people, real long close-ups on their faces and their eyes, and I thought it was really strong in that way. But I thought the young woman, and I was surprised to see that this actress didn't do anything else, really, just one other movie besides this, because I thought she rode that line of, am I just simple and quiet and don't really understand what's happening, or am I actually like secretly listening, secretly peering at what's going on?
You're talking about the young
one, yeah. There'd be those moments where, she peeked outside a door and looked around and was listening in on the other conversation.
Yes.
And I was waiting for that, like, evil smile to be like, okay. But it just was shy of that, It was just shy of that. That I just wasn't sure.
Barely. Like, it seemed like she definitely gave knowing looks or kind of like, ha, got you, kind of. But again, it could just as easily have been innocent. I feel like you just mentioned that, these kind of shady things are happening. I feel like we should just real quick detail some of the weird things that seemingly are happening. Like, the wife is having, like, she has these kaleidoscopic dreams about the doll and the maid seducing her husband, and then, like, steamy sex between the maid and the husband. And then there are other little things, like at one point, seemingly unprompted, she goes and ransacks the maid's very dirty room. Yeah. I don't think I would hire a maid who had a room that was so gross
just
like
had
that.
Stuff on the floor.
Yeah. And she finds her husband's lighter, and she confronts them both. Like, why does she have this lighter? And he's like, it doesn't work. I threw it away. She must have picked it out of the trash. And the maid just stands there like, I don't know.
I'm sorry.
And then the husband walks away, and the wife is playing with the lighter, and it lights. Or does it? Again, like, we don't know what we're seeing. We don't know if we're seeing an objective perspective or if we're seeing... And so what if it does? Maybe he thought it died and he threw it away. And
exactly. It's so ambiguous.
Right. It doesn't matter. What else? I don't... There are other things too, I suppose.
While she's having these dreams, sometimes she wakes up and she goes downstairs and she thinks she hears suspicious sounds from the girl's room. Like, it sounds like the girl and the husband are in there, but she doesn't open the door. The husband is still supposedly gone because she's alone in the house.
He's not. The husband's not gone. He's there at this point in time, but she's also concerned because he's not. She says to her friend comes back here in just a second. She says to her friend, and we never. I don't remember how she said it, but she basically said, we never have sex anymore.
Yeah.
Because he says he's up all night. He's up all night working.
On his thesis.
So he is there. He's in the house. I mean, that's part of the problem.
But
he's not in her bed.
Right. But then at this moment that I was talking about, she goes upstairs to check his office and he's not there. So then she comes down and she's definitely going to open the door to the room. But then he surprises her from behind and he says, "Oh, I just went for a walk."
Mm-hmm.
Could he have, in that moment when she went upstairs and checked on the office, snuck out of the room and like now is he pretending that he just went out for a walk? It's so possible.
It's possible.
But I'm not sure. Every one of these things is very ambiguous, I think. There's the other bit where it starts to kind of escalate, right? Where the young girl, Miyoki, is inside the kitchen and she's preparing coffee for the husband to go upstairs. So she makes the coffee. The wife goes somewhere else. When the wife comes back, she's visualizing in her head Miyoki and her husband making out in his office while she's delivering the coffee. So then she comes back in downstairs to the kitchen area. The door's closed. She goes into the kitchen and she starts to feel very, very faint. And we're like, what's going on? Why is she feeling faint? She at one point seemed to believe that maybe this woman had poisoned her coffee because she's watching her from the living room and she sees her pouring the creamer into her coffee and not her husband's coffee. She asks her about it. She's like, well, your husband takes it black. So she wanders into the kitchen. She's feeling faint and weird. And then she looks over at the stove and sees that the gas is on. Like the stove is off, but the gas is still on. And so she flips it off, throws open the door, and then the girl comes back down and she says, "What were you up there for so long?" She's like, "Oh, I'm just delivering the coffee." She's like, "Look over here. Does anything look weird to you?" And she looks at the stove and she says, "Oh, the gas is on." And she's like, "No, the gas is off. This is what it's like when it's on." She's like, "Oh, I didn't know. I thought it was the other way."
Yeah, you're conflating a couple of instances. There is the coffee thing where she watches the maid make the coffee and she sees her. It could be creamer, but it comes out of it seemed like a folded envelope pouch. Like it looks like poison. It looks like she's putting poison or drugs in it or something.
She's using the paper, to get it in there. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and you're right that, when the maid takes the coffee up to the husband, then she has this whole fantasy about them making out and having sex and those kinds of things. But I think that it's later. I think it's later that night because I think Miyoki is in bed when she
goes down.
The wife
moments later.
Goes into the kitchen.
Yeah.
And the only significant thing that happened before that is that we had said that she had kind of crossed her husband in the hallway or whatever, but there was another time when she woke up in the night and she walked up to the door and she thought she saw her husband go into Miyoki's room.
Yeah.
And she started to turn the knob, but she chickened out and then she looked through the keyhole. And again, through this kaleidoscopic thing, you see them doing the nasty or whatever. And then she passes out, but then she wakes up and the husband's like, "Oh, I was working in my room and I heard a thud and you passed out and I brought..." So it's all of these, it could be not. For a long time.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the woman is also obsessed with this totem, the mom.
Yeah, she is.
Because Miyoki keeps it, and it is weird. She has it with her everywhere she goes.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's a cute little baby doll. It's like it's like a 1.5 2 foot tall wooden statue that she just carries around and props up everywhere. It's like, "Oh yeah, I keep it with me everywhere I go because it protects me." It is creepy and weird, but whatever. People are weird. So it built up all that suspense, and I definitely want to get to what that builds to. But real quick, we've just mentioned several very intimate scenes.
Mm-hmm.
This movie, I don't know, you had said earlier that this may have been during a time when the censors were being a little bit more lenient and people were pushing the boundaries a little bit more. These nude scenes and sex scenes, and the sex scenes are between this very average middle-aged man and these two beautiful women, and he just basically has to stand there.
They're all over him.
Well, they're all over him, and they kind of writhe around. But definitely, booby shots, definitely lots of moaning and stuff. That stuff, whether it was fantasy or reality, I mean, I presume between the husband and wife, it was meant to be reality. But whether the stuff between the maid and the husband was fantasy or reality, it was erotic. I would say it was reminiscent of like early 90s American thrillers like
Yeah, it was hot.
Sliver or Fatal Attraction, or not Fatal Attraction, Basic Instinct, something like that. Like,
Yeah.
erotic. I was a little grossed out at the longer than I needed shot of him aggressively sucking the maid's nipple. That's not something you see in American movies very often.
Too bad. Yeah.
But I was a little bit bothered. You're so disgusting. I don't know why we're friends. It did bother me a little bit that the camera, the director, whomever it was, really seemed to leer at that young woman a lot. Like,
oh yeah,
it just seemed like there were a lot of shots of like her like upper skirt or like shooting like towards her vagina. Like,
but
it was
the wife was always present or thinking of this. It was all through the wife's eye. Even when that girl is laying down on the sofa,
on the couch, spread eagle.
But it starts out
so
as a high shot from above where it's not so leering. It's only when the wife comes into the room that you see from the wife's perspective, she's seeing a little more, between the skirt type thing and being a little scandalized by it. So, I mean, it's actually, or the husband comes in and then the wife comes in. But I think that's the whole point of the movie. It's not about us leering at this girl. It's about this wife being so obsessed with this youth and the danger that it possibly poses to the family. Again, the iconography for this are those two cobras that are heart-shaped. It's this dichotomy of this dangerous love, It's two cobras coiled up in a heart shape it looks like they're both attacking a rat down below. It's symbolic of a shady love triangle, you could say. The danger of love. You get in a relationship with somebody and suddenly it gets tried or there's temptations there, and now she's in this dangerous situation where this woman is potentially a threat to her, and it gets up in her head. And not only can she not stop thinking about the two of them making out, but she cannot stop thinking about how this girl is young and beautiful and her body is gorgeous.
That was the one scene, the one that we were just talking about, that I couldn't wrap my head around, because up until this point, and ultimately I think that the lady was probably just crazy. I don't know, but I think she was just nuts. But in this scene, I feel like the wife comes in, sees the maid spread eagle. I mean, she's wearing a little skirt. It's not like...
Well, she's fallen asleep
beaver
with her
out.
legs open. I mean, it's not like she's spread eagle or something. It's like she's kind of on her side and her legs are open.
But the wife walks away and is out of the room. And then the husband comes in and sees the same scene. And while the wife is still out of the room, he reaches for the girl, and it looked like he was reaching for her cooch.
He touched her leg.
And
like her ankle.
It looked to me like he was reaching further than that.
No.
Now, maybe I'm just disgusting. I don't know.
He was too far away for that. Yeah, you were hoping, I think.
Well, because the wife walks in and is like, "What are you doing?" And he like recoils. Like he
says, "What's she doing here? Why is she sleeping here?"
And then they wake her up and yell at her.
It's so good for him, too, because, like, you really think this guy's either really, really good at gaslighting her or he's just completely innocent. But I'm never quite sure. Like, why would he touch this girl's leg?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that at all. There may very well have been something going on between the husband and the maid, but regardless, I think the wife was losing it. Yeah. Now all the supernatural stuff, like, it comes to a head. Like, the woman, she tells her husband what she thinks is going on, and he's like, "You're crazy." And she tells her friend, "I think this is going on," and her friend is like, "You are crazy." Like, people just keep telling you are crazy. You need to go
to a psychiatrist. He starts to dial one earlier and gets a wrong number. I mean, like, yeah, it's very much what she doesn't want to hear. It could also be gaslighting.
Over and over and over again. Well, right, but why would her friend be doing it? Like, that's... her friend, who was the one who said, watch out for your husband, they cheat all the time. Now she's like, no, you're crazy. Let me call a psychiatrist or whatever.
You're right.
But whatever, it doesn't matter. Eventually she becomes so paranoid that she sets up a trap. She sets up a janky thing in the attic window and tells the maid to clean the window, and she does, and the maid falls out of the window and dies. And of course, while she was cleaning this window, apparently she had this doll on her, and it's down there too.
Or did she? I don't know. The doll's there.
Who knows?
Yeah, it's hard to know. I hated the woman at this point. That was the worst, most cruel thing for her to set up her death. That point, I lost a lot of empathy for her.
Well, the other thing is, at some point in the movie, the husband thinks she's crazy, but she says, I want to fire her.
Yeah.
And the husband's like, well, I think that's dumb, but if you want to, go ahead.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, I guess it's fine. Like,
yeah.
Just fire her. You don't have to...
I agree. That's what I was thinking. I was like, it's the classic divorce versus murder plot. That's like if you don't like your spouse, just divorce them. Don't murder them.
Just get a divorce. Right. Yeah. Anyway, she sets this girl up to get killed. The girl does get killed. Now she's being haunted by this totem.
Yeah.
She tries to get rid of it. I don't know what she does with it. She throws it out the window. She throws it in the woods. Her daughter finds it in the garden, brings it back. She takes it out and she wraps it up and tries to sink it in the pond. The dog brings it back. She's freaking out about it. She tells her husband. He's like, no, you're crazy. Dolls don't do that. And to prove it to you, I'm going to put this doll on your bedroom bureau, and you better not move it, or I'm going to put you in the loony bin.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm leaving for the night. See you later.
Yeah, I'm leaving for 4 days. We knew what was happening. This is burnt offerings.
Yeah. He leaves her in the house with this doll, and then there's a whole sequence of the doll is menacing her, or isn't it? Like, the doll is moving, it's changing location, it's popping up in windows, it's changing sizes. Sometimes it's just the doll, sometimes it's like a ghostly humanized. When it was the ghostly humanized version of the doll, and when I say that, I mean it's an actress. That's what I was going to ask. I didn't know if it was meant to be the maid or not. I couldn't tell.
I'm pretty sure it was meant to be the maid. Yeah, her face is all white, but yeah.
I think so too, but yeah, she's in the white makeup. She's dressed just like the doll. And sometimes like that image is kind of superimposed over the doll, so it's both of them, and the ghost thing is chasing her with that enormous cleaver and like and it's very haunted house, and it's a dark and stormy night. Now, the only thing that had me a little bit intrigued in this, because for the most part, this whole haunting part just felt like an after-school special to me. Like, it just felt like, ooh, scary ghost story.
Oh, yeah? I liked it. I mean, I thought it was very much of its time, but for that, I dug it. I thought it was effective.
It was okay. The thing that troubled me was that they made a point of her, the mom, calling her friend, the same friend that we've seen a bazillion times, and saying, please come over. Mm-hmm. I'm all alone and I need somebody. And initially the friend says she will come over, but then she calls and says, I can't go out, it's raining. Like, she does have an amazing perm, so I get it why she can't go out in the rain. But I really, really thought that the way that the movie was going to end was that the wife was going to attack and kill the ghost.
Friend.
Yes,
Yeah.
only to find out that it really was the friend. And then the husband would find that.
I thought it would be her husband coming in, but yeah, same deal. Yeah, I also thought that actually would have been a pretty cool ending.
I would have liked it better. I mean, the ending is fine, I suppose. Like, this battle goes on for a while. Like, 5 minutes?
Oh, 10 minutes. And it deliberately calls out a couple movies. Like, there's a whole Shining moment where she's hacking her way into the bathroom. And then when she goes into the butterfly room, the butterfly case gets broken, and it's the birds. You know, those butterflies are coming out and attacking her.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of enjoyed that, actually. And you don't know if it's real or not. Like, you just don't know if this is real or if this is all in her head. But there's no question that this woman is running around the house smashing things up to smithereens.
Oh, she's destroying the house, right?
Yeah. And they end up in the bathroom. There's a struggle of legs. There's, they're like all on top of each other. And wife gets above this doll / ghost woman and stabs it. And there is blood. There's blood that goes over her face and on the wall. And she looks down and the doll is dead.
Right.
It's got a knife in it. And she collapses. And then the husband comes home in the daytime and walks into the living room to find the wife sitting on the floor, dressed up like the doll, sitting up with that cleaver in her hand, just like the doll.
Yes.
And the doll's in front of her.
And just kind of a crazy, vacant look on her face.
Yeah.
Like she is
possessed.
Or just gone. Like, I don't know.
Or gone.
I actually, I kind of liked that ending, but that ending would have felt more appropriate to me in an episode of Tales from the Crypt. I know I say that all the time. All I mean by that really is that I think that this would have worked better in short form.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't need an hour and 50 minutes of it. This could have been a tight 25 minutes, and I think it would have been fun and spooky.
I agree, but that's all it would have been. I don't think it would have been as intense. You didn't find the movie intense. I found the movie intense. I was really in this woman's head. I was really questioning the whole time. Is she imagining it? Is she not? I was scouring every scene for clues. I was looking for ways that the filmmaker was cluing me into, is this real? Is this not? And I was both maddened and delighted by the fact that I was never sure. I never found a tell. There was never a moment in this movie. I think there's not a moment in this movie you can point to and say, well, because of this thing, you know for a fact that she's crazy and that nothing was going on, or vice versa. I just don't think there's a moment in the movie that you can identify. And I think that's really hard to pull off, that degree of subtlety and ambiguity over an hour and a half. If this had been a Tales from the Crypt movie, and by the way, I totally agree with you. It played like an extended episode of Tales from the Crypt. I mean, it's a similar kind of plot. Mm-hmm. Most of the Tales from the Crypt stories have, but it just would have been simple and cheesy, and it would have needed a twist ending. And I don't think you would have had so much. I just don't think it would have been as masterful. I don't think it would have kept me.
It would have been less ambiguous, I think.
Yeah.
I think that it would have been more clear that there was likely something supernatural going on if you condensed it.
Yeah, for sure. But I don't know, man. This movie had a lot of things going for it. I liked the color schemes. One of the things that the colors are symbolic. They have this term here in China called he's wearing a green hat. And that basically means a guy's wife is cheating on him. The color green is symbolic of extramarital affair, cuckolding, or that kind of thing. And so I thought it was really interesting early on. There's a whole sequence of moments when she's first imagining that this woman might be cheating on her husband. It's like you said, it's like almost like shot through the bottom of a tumbler. But everything's very green, except for some red to symbolize the lust. Like there's a red rose. The girl's robe is red. At one point, the bed behind the dad and the maid making out, the sheets are red. But actually, their sheets are green. And then it cuts to the woman having this dream lying in bed. There's a shot from above where her sheets are green. And then the next morning, she goes into her husband's office, and whereas the rest of the house is decorated with this big, bright red carpet that's quite expansive, his office has a green carpet in it. I thought that was really interesting how he used those colors in there to symbolize the adultery, and then the stark red, which symbolizes a lot in Asian culture, but obviously we're talking about love, we're talking about lust, we're talking about romance. I just felt like a lot of anxiety here between male and female, between a husband and wife, a lot of that anxious tension, which by the way is so present in Asian culture. I mean, like I said, to an extent, it's a part of every relationship, but
of course,
it's really intense here. Like, people are very worried about this. It's just I can see probably in the 60s as well, up through the 80s, in Korea, when mores are changing and things are opening up and women are starting to be given more opportunities. Or I can imagine this in a time period where it probably really spoke to people.
Yeah, and it could speak to anybody, I think, but I think that there's a lot, and this is coming from not a very worldly perspective, but it seems that in other parts of the world, there's a lot more stigma around infidelity and divorce, and it seems there's a lot more shame associated with that. It's just so prevalent in America that we just don't even bat an eye. Like, oh, yeah, well, that's the way things go. But when you're talking about colors and stuff, I didn't feel watching the movie that it warranted that kind of scrutiny. Like, I don't, and I don't know, maybe it does. And honest, like, I didn't like it. And to be perfectly honest with the listeners, I wouldn't recommend it. I didn't have a good time. I thought it was boring. I couldn't wait for it to be over. When I feel that way about something and I come in thinking, Jesus Christ, again? Like, why do I let him pick movies? When will I ever learn? But then when I come in and I hear you talk about it and I hear the things that you appreciate, and I'm being 100% serious, it makes me think about it from a different perspective, and it makes me happy that you enjoyed it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm happy that you picked it out and you were, excited about seeing it and you found something to enjoy in it. And I'm glad for you. And maybe, I can't imagine why, but maybe there are some listeners who lean more towards your taste than mine. And if that's the case, then you should, if you were like, I don't want to compare it to Vampiros Lesbos because it wasn't like that. But if you liked that, like Todd likes these weird things, then sure, check it out.
It is so funny. I would never put this in the same category as Vampiros Lesbos.
No, it's absolutely not. I only put it in the like weird crackpot genre. This isn't as exploitive or anything. It's a little bit exploitive, but not to that extent. It's just something that I would never, ever choose to watch.
I think this is an arty film. And, it's not my job or my desire to try to convince you that every movie I pick is really great. And you know that.
Yeah.
But we could not be more... And I'm glad, that you maybe found a few more things to like about it during the course of our conversation, but we could not be more polar opposite about this movie. I thought this movie was really well made, very carefully made, very thoughtfully made. I was into it the whole time. I thought it was very psychologically dense. I thought it was highly symbolic, almost too symbolic in a way. Like it ventures at times into a little corniness, like how artsy maybe it's becoming. But, that's my take on it. I think it's maybe sometimes a little too artsy for its own good, but I don't really knock that against the movie. I like movies like that too. I like symbolism being used and imagery being shown again and again to prove a point. You're right. Maybe there were a few too many shots through that heart snake thing. Like, we got the idea, but just in case, here are a couple more. And then at one point, that statue like almost literally attacks her, right?
Yeah.
At least it falls on her as though it does. So,
and I was like, thank God. Like, thank God they finally paid that off.
Right. So, and
it's not, it's a statue. It's not even a statue. It's like a taxidermy. It's like two cobras wrapped around, like you said, like a muskrat or something, but it's not like a stone statue. It's like taxidermy, and she like falls into it. So like these snakes are face to face, and like her head falls in between. So it's like wrapped around her neck.
Yeah.
And she just like struggles with it on the ground. It's not like it's moving or anything. She's just like, But it was funny, and I was glad it paid off.
Yeah, the house is full of taxidermy, actually, which kind of makes sense because he's this professor who's in biology or whatever. But there's a lot. I think there's a lot we could unpack there, too, like with the butterflies, with the birds. There are constantly birds in the house. She sees a crow outside and throws a rock at it earlier, and we know what that symbolizes. That's the same over here as it is there. Kind of a bringer of doom. I thought it was interesting that every time she's prowling around at night, there's always a shot framed with that owl in the foreground. The night bird is there watching while she's out watching. And I did, after a while, wonder if that was supposed to clue me into the fact that maybe she's dreaming. I think there's a lot to unpack here, probably more than we could ever do justice. That's how good a movie I think it is. I would recommend that if you like older films that are a slower burn, you like this time period in particular, it has slight giallo elements to it, I would recommend you watch it. If you like these psychological thrillers that are a little more ambiguous and a horror that you're not quite sure if it all takes place in their head or not, this is right up there with the best of them, I think. It's just, you got to deal with an artsy movie. You got to deal with a different culture and a different time period, but same.
And if you're uncultured swine like me.
Like you. You're open to this stuff. I know you are. This is not a dig at you at all.
I get it.
I'm probably the same reason why I don't know, like, you like those Hammer horror films, the Vincent Price movies and things, but they're not generally your cup of tea.
No.
Whereas I eat those up all day long, you know?
Yeah.
That's kind of in a similar vein, maybe.
No, and I do. I think it's good that we, in some ways at least, that our tastes are different.
Divergent, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, if we, well, I mean, it's just, I appreciate being exposed to new things, but I think that it's also, you know, as far as the podcast goes, people tell us that they appreciate that we do a wide variety of things. So I'm glad that you bring these things to the table.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us this time around. If you like this movie or haven't seen it and end up going to watch it, we'd love to hear your comments. Go ahead and weigh in on the discussion on our website, chainsawhorror.com, or go to our social media. Just type in Two Guys and a Chainsaw Podcast, and you'll find that there. We would love to hear what other foreign films that we are overlooking, some J-horror, some K-horror. Liz keeps telling me we need to do more Indonesian horror, and I fully agree with that. We should have her on the show to help explain some of it to us.
Yeah.
Drop us a note. Let us know what we need to do, and we'll put it on a request list. We'll definitely seriously consider it, and hopefully it'll be on an upcoming show. Until next time, I'm Todd.
And I'm Craig.
With Two Guys and a Chainsaw.